Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio, where we keep you informed, engaged, and entertained about everything you want to know about the Montreal Canadiens organization. We're glad that you are here this week. Let me introduce myself. My name is Amy Johnson, in case this is your first time here, and I'm going to be your host for today's show for episode 331 of the Canadiens Connection podcast. Which means if you are new around here, you've got 330 episodes to catch up on. So if you have some spare time, you might want to do a little bit of that.
And then there was the 250 episodes of Habs 360 that we did before that. So add those in.
Add those in. Lots and lots and lots of podcasting. I haven't been introduced yet. That's all right. It's just this anonymous voice that's coming in. Let's put a name to that voice. It's my co-host, always here in the studio with us. He is the founder and president of Rocket Sports. His name is Rick Stevens. How you doing today? Yeah, we've the show's been around for a while. Yeah,
what started in podcasting every Saturday since 2012 on Rocket Sports. First with Chris G and Habs 360, and he and I did the podcast for 250 episodes, and then
rebranded
as the Canadiens Connection.
That's right.
Still every Saturday.
And now 330. Yeah. This is our 331st episode. If you are new, or maybe you've only been listening for a year, maybe whatever, we have an entire archive of all of our podcast episodes. You can go to CanadiensConnection.fm. CanadiensConnection.fm. Get you the whole archive. How you doing today?
Hey, everything's wonderful in Habs land. Everybody's happy. Everybody's enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
Hottest team in the NHL, the Montreal Canadiens, and everybody's in a good mood. And unless you mention the name Corey Pronman, and then prepare for some incoming. But other than that, everything's fantastic in Habs land.
Well, it's been a bit of pretty good December. It's been a pretty good January. We're going to talk about all of that and figure out, are the Habs for real? Like, is this, I like the phrase that I heard today was, is this just a mid-season mirage?
Well, and it was our most popular question on the Rocket Sports text line, email. Everybody's asking, is this for real? Can they sustain
hang a hope on this?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to talk about we're going to recap the games that took place for the Canadiens this past week. We're also going to catch you up on prospect reports, talk about how Laval's been doing, get you some injury reports, roster updates, NHL news, and then, yes, in that big topic segment, that's segment 2, we're going to talk about this surge that the Canadiens have been on for over a month now, this big turnaround that they've had, and we're going to examine how it's happened and question whether or not it is sustainable. Kind of adjusting some expectations here mid-season. It's gonna be an interesting segment to be sure. And then, of course, in our third segment, we let you voice your opinions, and it's where we get to tap into our listener and viewer feedback and read some of your best comments and responses from last week's show here on this week's show. So if you want to join the conversation, if you want to throw your name and your opinion and your voice in the mix, be sure to reach out to us anytime on the Rocket Sports text line. That is 5853-ROCKET, 5853-ROCKET. You can also leave us a comment on our YouTube channel on the most recent video. And that would, if you just go to InsideTheCanadiens.com, that'll take you right to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, leave a comment there. or just hit us up on X, Facebook, Instagram at Habs Connection, and leave a response or a DM there as well. Would love to hear from you. So let's first, before we go forward, let's go back a week and talk about briefly the 3 games that have taken place for the Canadiens. Not all of which I saw, because I don't stay up for the ends of 9 p.m. Eastern start time games.
Okay.
So that's okay. But first, we had last Saturday's game at the Bell Center against Dallas. I saw that one in its entirety. That was a regular start. Even though it did go all the way to the shootout. Although Montreal did get a point out of that one, Dallas ended up with a 2-1 victory there in the shootout. So good to get a point. It was a tight one. Laine back on the power play goal scoring.
Well, yeah, Patrik Laine returned to the lineup after missing 4 games with the mystery illness. But yeah, as you said, 9th power play goal of the season. Jamie Benn scored to tie it up. Pretty soft goal, Sam Montembeault. And then it was Jason Robertson scoring the only goal of the shootout. Dallas wins in the shootout.
Absolutely. Then, yes, we moved to this week where there were 2 games, one in Utah, one in Dallas. And so those were 9 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern start times, respectively. So kudos to any of you who were up for the entirety. The good news is Montreal came out on the winning side of both of them. In Utah, Montreal comes out their very first visit to Salt Lake City. The good news was they came out with a win. Bad news was they lost the services of one of their forwards for a little bit while they were on that visit. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in this one, they beat Utah 5-3. Kirby Dach, man, I'm liking the rejuvenated Kirby Dach for the last month or so.
Picking things up. Tuesday's game was so odd. And I, in our internal Slack group, I said it was just weird to digest, to understand, to analyze. Both teams lack of discipline. Canadians in the first period, Utah in the second period. There's bad goaltending on both sides. Not a great display of goaltending, but some wonderful displays of skill on both sides. I liked Marty St. Louis said afterwards that he basically didn't say anything after the first period, that the locker room took care of things. And there was reports that the locker room bluntly took care of things, that there was some fingers pointed after the first period. Part of that had to do with the undisciplined play. Michael Pezzetta, stop taking early penalties.
You can't get through 5 minutes of a game without him doing that.
Yeah, he's you got to feel for him because of how much time he spent in the press box, but he's not helping himself with incidents like that. As you said, Kirby Dach with a couple of goals, 7th and 8th of the season. Patrik Laine scored at even strength for the first time this season, and Cole Caulfield with his 24th. So a victory in Salt Lake City.
Cruising then right along as they move to Dallas on Thursday night, a little bit earlier. This is an 8 p.m. Eastern start time. Jakub Dobeš getting the start in net. And Montreal, I was surprised to see Montreal just really kind of locked things down as the game progressed. Dobeš was spectacular once again. And Montreal came out with a 3-1 victory.
32 saves for Jakub Dobeš to get his 4th straight win. This game may have been the best game that I've seen in a very, very long time. These two teams looked even. They both looked like they were playing well, and Montreal looked like they had the confidence to say, you know what, we can play in this building. with this team, and we're confident we can beat them. It was, there's an empty netter. So basically another 1-goal game between these two teams. Slavkovsky with a really nice goal. And as he said, he didn't have much to do with it. It was all Cole Caulfield. But no, he drove to the net and Caulfield set him up with a perfect pass. Newhook in the third period was the difference. And then Yoel Armia with the empty netter to finish it off. But wow, you can't say enough about Jakub Dobeš. Again, one of the league's top teams, and again going into a tough building to play in. And all his starts have been on the road. He's been unbelievable.
He's not lost a game yet, knock on wood. His 4-0-0 record, a .98 goals against average.
That's pretty good.
This is all right, I guess. A .963 save percentage. It's not too shabby. And, don't forget about that shutout that he notched to start his NHL career.
Yeah, we're going to hear from him a little bit later, a quote from him. But he's been just outstanding, and against we've talked about it before. Every one of his games, when you compare them with Montembeault's starts, he's got the tougher assignment, both in terms of the team and having the road start. And he's shone. He's just been great. The only thing that I'll complain about, and it has probably little to do with Dobeš, where's the accent? Equipment staff. Where's the accent on the S in Dobeš? And as I'm complaining, don't do anything now. Don't do anything to change.
Don't change his uniform at all.
Don't change a bit. But I remember that the Canadiens took great pride in this. Was former equipment manager Pierre Gervais saying, back 2013, that all their jerseys, if the name has an accent on it, we're going to put it on. And I think Danny Briere was the very first one to have an accent on the jersey. Joris Slavkovsky has it. There's been other players over the years. So asking Patrik Laine, current equipment manager, or our dear friend, assistant equipment manager Frankie St. Pierre. We know Frankie well.
That's right.
Where's the accent?
Particularly because Dobeš does have the accent over the S in his last name when he plays in Laval. In Laval, there's an accent on the back of his jersey over the S at the end of Dobeš. So why does it disappear when he goes to Montreal?
It's the little smile accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a name for that.
It looks like a V.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pretend that I know what it's called.
Well, if you know,
someone tell us. Leave us a comment.
5853 Rocket.
Tell us what that little accent is called. And once we want Dobeš's streak to go as long as possible. So as Rick said,
before there's any change.
We're not lobbying to change it right now, but maybe next season. Let's see that fixed. So the Canadiens sitting with a 22-18-4 record, 48 points, 6th in the Atlantic, 18th overall in the NHL. I don't know who these guys are. I don't know what team this is.
A 36% chance of making the playoffs. That's way up from what it was in early December, and now on pace for an 89-point season. You want to get that up to, say, mid-90s before we're comfortable talking about the playoffs.
Well, don't you just ask for everything?
I do. I'm going to talk about goal differential later if you really want what I really want.
Oh, goody.
What I really, really want.
We're waiting.
Yeah.
All right. Molson Cup was awarded for the month of December. And is anyone really surprised that it went to Patrik Laine with all of those power play goals?
All those power play goals.
Yeah. So I think that was no argument from anyone to see Patrik Laine with the Molson Cup for December.
Mm-hmm.
I did say a moment ago that the Habs had good news in Salt Lake City, their first visit to Salt Lake City, coming out with the victory, but also some bad news as well. And this was just a strange and unfortunate incident. Emil Heineman involved in a car accident on Monday in Salt Lake City. The Canadiens, and maybe they're regretting their decision to go to Salt Lake a day early.
Yeah.
They flew out, I believe, on Monday, got there a day early, And unfortunately, Emil Heineman, as a pedestrian, was struck by a vehicle in some sort of accident. And the Canadiens announced he's going to. This was prior to the game, the day before the game, and the Canadiens announced he's going to be out of commission for 3 to 4 weeks. It just awful news. Thank goodness, not more serious than that. But what a scary thing to go through. And he's been having such a tremendous season so far. Hate to see it interrupted for something kind of as an innocuous incident like getting struck while you're crossing a street.
Yeah, and as you said, could have been more serious. It sounds like the driver was at fault. He was kind of in the middle of the middle lane and turned right from the middle lane rather than being in the right-hand lane where you're supposed to turn right. So kind of caught Heineman off guard as he was crossing the street. The police are still investigating. I'm not sure if there'll be charges involved or not. But when the police arrived, and it was a bystander who called police, when the police arrived, there was nobody to be found. The driver was gone. Heineman was gone. The bystander who called it in was gone. So it's been turned over to the highway patrol, and they're investigating. You mentioned Heineman, successful season, rookie season, right up there in terms of rookie goal scoring. 10 goals, 7 assists, 17 points in 41 games in only 11 minutes of ice time. And you're comparing him to, guys like Celebrini who are getting power play time and lots more ice time. And he's, I think, kind of quietly having a remarkable season. Mm-hmm. Marty St. Louis made a quip about, the car was totaled and whatnot. Maybe surprising to our listeners that Heineman currently leads the team, the Montreal Canadiens, in hits with 101. That's ahead of Xhekaj, ahead of Josh Anderson, ahead of Slafkovsky, ahead of Kirby Dach, the guys that you might expect to be up there. Now, he's going to drop down the list over the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. With this, it sounds like a fractured hand, but that's an amazing statistic all in itself. Shows how engaged he is, how involved, and how important he has been to that fourth line.
And just wishing him a speedy recovery and that he can be back to 100% very soon.
Yeah, especially with that shot. His shot is lethal, and you wouldn't want anything to affect that.
No. Speaking of injury recovery, David Reinbacher, remember him? He was seen skating out on the ice at Brassard this week. So it seems progress for the young defenseman continues on.
Yeah, it sounds like he's on track. It was predicted he'd be back in March. Will he be skating alone for, a month and then joining the team, joining Laval likely?
Mm-hmm. I would think so.
Probably. That seems that he's on track, or maybe a little bit ahead of schedule.
All right, so that sets everything up for Saturday night. Tonight is the next game, the Canadiens versus the Maple Leafs. There was no morning skate for the Canadiens on Saturday morning, but we do know that Sam Montembeault is going to get the start, I believe, against Joseph Woll for Saturday night's game. So we'll see how that shakes out. We'll talk a little bit more about the Canadiens' upcoming schedule a little later in the show. One last thing in terms of personnel, the Canadiens have hired a new consultant, Marc Bureau, who has actually played for the Montreal back in the mid-90s. And Rick, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this hiring.
Yeah, a bit of a journeyman kind of guy. Played for Tampa, Montreal, Philadelphia, I think the Minnesota North Stars. Kind of sets the time frame. He's been a little bit involved in hockey since retiring. He was a scout for Cape Breton in the Q between 2011 and 2014. He was known as a good face-off guy, a good penalty killer. So been added as a consultant to help Montreal and Laval, to help the guys on face-offs, to help with some penalty kill techniques and whatnot. So a nice hire there.
Absolutely. All right, let's switch gears from the current NHL roster and just take a quick peek at what's happening with Canadiens prospects.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
Going to kick things off with a Jacob Fowler update.
All right,
How
then.
surprised are you going to be if I tell you that he got another shutout? 24 save shutout on Friday night. And yes, as my reaction indicates, it's not the first time that he's blanked his opponent this season.
Well, he's having a sensational season following up on a sensational rookie season. As you said, it was against Providence, I believe, on Friday night. He posted his 5th shutout of the season. Boston College winning that game 3-0. So currently with a record of 14-3-1, 174 goals against, 932 save percentage, and 5 shutouts.
Okay. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
We also always like to check in on Ivan Demidov. He's still just zooming along. Played on the top line on Thursday, had a 3-point game. He's just racking it up. 15 goals, 20 assists. I think it's safe to say that he has kind of pushed through his adversity in the early parts of the season.
35 points in 44 games. Of course, it has nothing to his ice time has nothing whatsoever to do with the Canadiens visitors. So we've been told, but so far a season high 22 minutes of ice time on Thursday on that top line, 3-point game. We also understand that he's going to be at the KHL All-Star game as a replacement for Tony DeAngelo. Tony DeAngelo headed home back to North America for undisclosed family reasons. So that leaves a spot for Demidov on the All-Star team.
All right. We're going to touch on something that Rick alluded to right off at the top of the show. We're not going to take a tremendously deep dive on this, but since it has been such a buzz, particularly with Habs fans on social media, absolutely have to touch base on the Athletic article that came out by Corey Pronman, where he's ranking top NHL players and prospects under the age of 23. And this is a list where he's got Macklin Celebrini up at the top. And, well, Rick, it seems that there's a lot of hubbub amongst Canadiens fans and pundits and analysts and media types of how he has ranked the Canadiens prospects on this overall list.
Corey Pronman is currently public enemy number 1 in Montreal. And maybe he hadn't given up that title because I think his last list, he wasn't very popular either. But this one is such a visceral reaction from Canadiens fans. And it's mainly about where Lane Hutson appears on this list. So first, about the list, it's a simple list. Corey does a simple list. And we should say, we know Corey. We've talked to Corey. Corey likes to do things differently. He likes his lists having a bit of controversy in him. He likes to think he's the smartest guy in the room, and you know, he gets a lot of things right. And I respect the fact that he puts out an article saying these are the things I got wrong. He does that, and let's hope he acknowledges the error of his ways with respect to Lane Hutson. So he's updated his list. The last time he published this list was on the 3rd of September. And so it's simple. Any player 22 years old or younger as of January 1st, 2025. And then he's ranked them, and he puts them into, and I think more important than the number, he puts them into tiers. So tier 1 is an elite NHL player. Montreal Canadiens have none of those, according to Corey. There are 3 of them, Macklin Celebrini, Tim Stützle, and Connor Bedard.
Okay, that's
And
fair. I think that's fair.
That's fine. That's fine. Tier 2 is, I'm going to have to find his list here. Tier 2 is NHL All-Star. Montreal Canadiens have none of those, according to Corey Pronman. None of those either. They could have had one. Matvei Michkov's in that list. Leo Carlson, Luke Hughes, Zev Buyam, Lucas Raymond, Adam Fantilli. Montreal Canadiens have none of those. Tier 3 is a bubble all-star and top of the lineup. Now, this is where you start to see some familiarity. And Logan Cooley at 13. We just saw Utah. Number 14, Yuri Slafkovsky. He was 15 in the September list, up to 14. Ivan Demidov at 16. That's up one as well from 17 on that September list. And then we go to Tier 4. That's top of the lineup players. Montreal Canadiens, in Corey Pronman's estimation, have none of the top of the lineup type players. There he has Ryan Leonard, Logan Stankoven, Shane Wright. So we have to go to Tier 5, and how he describes Tier 5 players is bubble top and middle of the lineup player. So there is where the controversy, I think, amongst, well, that's what we've heard from Canadiens fans. That's where he has Lane Hutson.
Okay.
Now, he would perhaps explain that that he's moved up Lane Hutson substantially, because in his September rankings, he had Lane Hutson at 87, which is it looks a little bit silly right now, but he's moved them up almost 50 moved Lane Hutson up almost 50 spots, and he'd say, isn't that good enough? And according to Canadiens fans, no, sir, it is not. So he says in his explanation, Hudson's a dynamo, has high-end poise, sense, power play, all of that. No doubting Hudson's offense. But he says the doubt comes down to his defense, small defenseman with good but not great feet. What about edges? Not very physical, has so much offense that he could be a top 4 defenseman, but he gives back a lot of goals on defense. So that's his critique that has ignited a controversy amongst Canadiens fans. Let's just quickly go through the rest of the list and focus on Canadiens prospects. Again, in that Tier 5, and I'll remind you, bubble top, middle of the lineup player is number 51, David Reinbacher. David Reinbacher up from 69, 18 places. I don't know what David Reinbacher has done between September and
I don't know how that works.
I don't get it. Okay. I don't honestly get it. Tier 6, middle of the lineup. So you're, well, you know what middle of the lineup means.
Yeah.
Whether you're a defenseman or a forward. He has Caden Gooley at 82.
What?
That might be even more outrageous than Lane Hutson. Caden Gooley has been a top pairing defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens, their number 1 defenseman since being moved to the left side. He's one of the main reasons for their turnaround. And Corey Pronman has him at 82 and in that Tier 6, middle of the lineup player. Now, since September, Corey Pronman had Caden Gooley at 61. Somehow,
how does he drop him?
This season, he's dropped 21 places.
Okay.
Sorry, Corey. That's outrageous.
No.
To finish the list, 103 is Michael Hage. He's up from 118. And Logan Mailloux is the only other Canadiens prospect on Corey's list at 107, and he's up from 120. Just out of interest, on the September list, Justin Barron was a Canadiens prospect at 99. And quietly, Corey Pronman has just erased him from his list. He's not on the list anymore. Not ranked at all.
Not ranked at all.
Can I complain about one more thing?
Yeah.
There are goalies on this list, a ton of goalies. The best being Yaroslav Askarov with San Jose at 42. And maybe I don't have any problem with that. Then he has Igor Zavragin, Flyers prospect, Sebastian Cossa, a very good one for Detroit. Michael Rabel, who we saw in the World Juniors with Utah, 136, and a couple more. Mikhail Yegorov, New Jersey prospect. But there's no Jacob Fowler. No Jacob Fowler on this list anywhere. And
how can that? I don't.
What did we just say about his record?
Five shutouts.
Yeah. So, take it with a grain of salt. Corey Pronman. It's been such a controversy this week that we just thought we'd tell you what exactly is in his list.
I don't like it. Quickly, we'll just get you up to date on how the Laval Rocket has fared this week. They've actually had a pretty good go of things as well this week. Seem to be finding some stability. A little bit of a stumble last weekend as they did not come out victorious against Cleveland in overtime last Saturday. Lost that one 2-1, but they did get a point out of it. But have no fear. They then went on to beat the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins 4-3 in overtime on Wednesday night and came back from being down 2-0 in Utica on Friday night, put up 3 unanswered goals, and managed to come out victorious over Utica 3-2 on Friday. They have a rematch in Laval against Utica on Saturday night. All of that comes together to say that the Rocket are currently sitting in first place in the North Division, 3rd overall in the AHL, and still just buzzing right along.
Those comeback wins were unbelievable. Two
comeback wins this week.
Amazing.
Want to make a quick mention and a tip of the hat to Laval has one of the theme nights that they've started to do every year is called their Legends Night, where they kind of tip of the hat to vintage teams or historical teams or notables from around the Laval area or throwbacks for the Canadiens, that type of thing. This year, they just unveiled their uniforms for their Legends Night for this season, this past week, and they collaborated with Violent Gentlemen to put this out. Violent Gentlemen used to be a really, I mean, you couldn't blink without seeing Violent Gentlemen merch and gear all over the place. They are still producing hockey stuff, just Paros and crew, or they just seem to be a little more under the radar these days. But Laval has partnered with Violent Gentlemen, and they have, I think, knocked this one out of the park. I haven't always loved their Legends uniforms, but this one looks really, really sharp. A little bit of a nod to the Chiefs in Slapshot. They did a great promo video for it at the Colisée in Laval. Very old school vintage kind of look. I think they've done a nice job with it.
I haven't heard of Violent Gentlemen for 10 years at least, but good on Laval for engaging them this time as a partner. They've used the beige kind of vintage colors in the past. This jersey and the whole outfit, the whole uniform is fantastic. You sent it to me. I was blown away. I like it maybe better than their current. And they have barber pole socks. And I know those are a dividing point. The barber pole jerseys are a dividing point, but for Canadiens fans, but barber pole socks just make it. It's a great looking outfit. Really like the jerseys. They've done a great job. Kudos to Laval. Kudos to the Violent Gentlemen.
And I'm actually one of those. I do not care for the Canadiens barber pole jerseys, but I don't mind the barber pole socks in this Laval kit. I think it's just enough of it for that nod.
Yeah.
Without it being overwhelming or too busy. I agree. Nicely done. I look forward to Legends Night game to see how they all look out on the ice. Trois Rivières definitely hit a bump in the road this week. 3 losses. Lost twice to the Reading Royals in 1-goal games, and then dropped a 5-2 loss to Norfolk. this week as well. Have no fear, though. They're still 4th overall in the ECHL, so they are doing just fine despite that, and hopefully they can right the ship maybe when they get back home, as these were all on the road. Don't forget to make sure you're following at Rocket Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, because that is where you will get links to our own Chris G's weekly Rocket Notepad article and Lions Notepad article. Those will be more in-depth on what's going on with those teams and kind of more in-depth recaps of the games that they played over the week. So be sure to look out for those. We mentioned the unfortunate incident with Emil Heineman and his accident in Salt Lake City this week. Michael Pezzetta was asked about how he and the rest of the team learned that this had happened on Monday night, and Pezzetta, in his usual style, had his own way of recounting the story, but it sounds like it certainly caught everybody by surprise.
Yeah, it was just like pretty crazy, to be honest. We were kind of joking around. Like, I don't think I really knew anyone that's happened to, and it's unfortunate because he's been playing such great hockey, and he's a great guy. We were all supposed to go to dinner together, so I just hope that he has a speedy recovery and his spirits are good, and so it's good.
Did you have a chance to find out?
We were just at the hotel. We were actually playing some cards, and then we found out. He texted in our chat because we were kind of planning for dinner, and he said, "I got a funny story for you guys." And we were just like, "Wait a minute, what?" And then he let us know, and it was like, "Oh man!" And then we all saw him in the lobby.
I've got a funny story for you guys. I just got hit by a car and broke
my wrist. Yeah.
Broke my wrist. That's yeah.
And Pezzetta seems to be involved in it. He was involved telling the story of Barron's exit from Montreal. Remember, again, it was a dinner thing. They're coming back from dinner. They're in the car, and Jeff Gorton's phone pops up on the car display. And Pezzetta was front and center for that again for this. Unfortunate incident, but I think it shows just how close the guys are, and they kind of made a little fun of it.
Pez might want to watch out. He's going to stop getting invited to dinner.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Some hockey notes just from around the league before we take our first break here. The Edmonton Oilers, a little bit of a roster update. They signed defenseman John Klingberg, the 32-year-old, who has not played this season. If you recall, he's recovering from hip surgery. But the Oilers looking for a defenseman, and they've gone with John Klingberg.
Yeah, it was. It's been reported by Pierre LeBrun and Drager and others that the Oilers were seriously shopping for a defenseman, that David Savard was on their list, and that the Oilers had reached out to Kent Hughes. Not sure what the answer was there, but instead, the Oilers have chosen to go with Klingberg. That probably leaves them now off the list of players, of teams who would be interested in a player like David Savard.
Following up on a story that we first brought to you last week, we had mentioned last week that Darren Dreger had unearthed some news about the potential sale of the OHL's Brantford Bulldogs. Well, that has actually now gone through and been approved by the OHL Board of Governors. So the Brantford Bulldogs have been sold. Remember, this was Michael Andlauer's team that he was still owner of. Sold the team to the Zach Hyman family.
Yeah, Mike Andlauer, current owner of the Ottawa Senators and the Belleville Senators, former part owner of the Montreal Canadiens.
All right, so that has gone through, and congratulations to Zach Hyman and his family. Something very fun happened on Friday night. Everyone loves a goalie goal. We know that. There's just nothing like a goalie goal in hockey, not even the NHL, just in hockey in general. It's a very exciting thing. Alex Nedeljkovic, playing now for the Pittsburgh Penguins, notched himself a goalie goal on Friday night, actually becoming the first goalie in NHL history to have a goal and an assist in that game. And it's not the first time that he's found the back of the net.
Now, it's this is kind of a weird statistic and record, maybe. But Nedeljkovic being the only goaltender to have scored in the NHL, the AHL, and the ECHL, that's going to be tough to break. I liked his quote. He said it all started from his dad. His dad used to they'd be in the car on the way to the rink, and his dad would say, "Don't just throw the puck around the boards. Make a smart play with it. Put it on a guy's tape, and do something with it." And so that began Nedeljkovic's focus on handling the puck and wanting to do something, wanting to make a good play, and it's resulted in a couple of famous goals.
Absolutely. And he's actually scored twice at the AHL level. So he actually has 4 goalie goals in pro leagues. The interesting thing is also he becomes one of just 3 goaltenders who have scored in the NHL and AHL. Steve Mason was another one. And Tristan Jarry also is in that club. Interesting that Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic have both done that as part of the Pittsburgh Penguins organization.
All right, then.
So Marc-Andre Fleury, where were you? Where were you? All right. On that note, we are going to take a quick break, and we are going to hear from our sponsors over at DraftKings, who have some new incentives for our listeners. And when we come back, we're going to hit our big topic, what has led to this Canadiens turnaround? And we're going to ask the question, is it sustainable? Can they keep this going? I bet you all have a lot of thoughts about that and a lot of hopes riding on it. So we're going to get into all of that right after this. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings yet? What are you waiting for? You better get on it. The playoffs are here and time is running out. As the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else. Play for better payouts on Pick 6. It's super easy to get started. You select 2 or more players, choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, that kind of thing. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. And DraftKings is making it even sweeter for first-timers. New Pick 6 customers play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And welcome back once again to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Once again, I am Amy Johnson. If you'd like to follow me over on Twitter, you can do so. Just look up my handle at FlyersRule. And of course, still with me here in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. You can also find him on Twitter as well. And actually, you definitely want to be sure you're following him on there because it is our main Rocket Sports account. And so that is at Rocket Sports. That's where you can find Rick. And as I've mentioned earlier in the show, you can also find the podcast itself on our social media platforms at Habs Connection, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. The one thing we want to make sure you do, if you are liking the show, if you enjoy having a place to come every week for some in-depth analysis and reviews and general talk about the Montreal Canadiens and their prospects, then you want to be sure that you're subscribed to the show. So however you're currently listening, if you're listening as a podcast, then just hit the subscribe button. And whether you're watching on YouTube right now or not, everyone just be sure to go to the YouTube channel and subscribe there as well. InsideTheCanadiens.com will take you over to the YouTube channel. So let's face it, the Montreal Canadiens have pretty much been the hottest team in the NHL over the last month. And if we had looked into a crystal ball back even as late as the beginning of December, that probably would have sounded pretty inconceivable.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I just see the Princess Bride scene flash through my mind? Inconceivable! Because at that point, Montreal was riding at about 31st overall in the NHL. I mean, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel. But through a very, very productive surge through December that has continued into the new year, they've just blazed their way all the way up through the standings, and now they are part of what has turned out to be a very congested group of 8 or 9 teams that are all fighting for kind of a wild card spot, playoff spot. And so in this segment, we're gonna do 2 things. We're gonna take you through step by step the things that we believe have led to this hot streak that the Habs are on. And then we're going to wrap up this segment at the end by kind of looking forward and trying to figure out if this is going to be sustainable or not.
All right.
So Rick, let's start with the numbers. You're a maths guy.
Mm-hmm.
You like the numbers.
I do.
You like math. And so let's look at some of the numbers. This last month, the Habs have gone 11-2-1 in the last month. The word is correct. It's inconceivable to think that they could have done that compared to what they were doing in October and November. Particularly when you look at that, the first 30 games they played, they only had 11 wins in 30 games, and they've cut that in half in this last month or so.
Amassed 11 wins in those past 14 games. In a schedule that was thought of to be the tough part of their schedule, a road trip around the holidays, facing some of the league's top teams, and they've knocked them off, including most recent Stanley Cup winners, and it's been quite a ride. And I think for Canadiens fans, on our internal Rocket Sports Slack group, Mike Raschel mentioned how much fun it is to watch. The Brian Beasley did that as well. They're a fun team to watch. It's entertaining. They've won 9 of 11 for the first time since 2017. What was tough during November, they were having a hard time scoring goals. Now they're second in this most recent period in terms of goals for, scoring about 3.5 goals per game. They're around, again, top 3 in goals against, allowing goals at a rate over this last month of 2.17. Pick a statistic. They have been top 5 in shots for percentage. That all the analytics are pointing to the fact that they are a very different team than they were early in the season. They've figured things out, and I think it's not just magic. It's not just there are some definite reasons that they've had this surge and moved up the standings to be in the mix.
Well, and it's not just the people who cover Montreal who have noticed. Teams around the league are starting to notice. In fact, just recently, the Canadiens played Dallas twice this week, and goaltender Jake Ottinger commented himself on what a difference a year makes when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens.
For sure, I think it's crazy how much better they are than last year and the year before. They're so dangerous. Power play's great. Your top 6 is as talented as anyone in the league. So, you give them some space and they'll make you pay.
Yeah, their speed, their attack, what they're creating. Power play is good. Top six is good. Jake Ottinger, a lot of respect for the Montreal Canadiens. One of the numbers that, I like to focus on, and that's goal differential. And at the beginning of the season, when we were talking about could the Canadiens make the playoffs, could they be in the mix, I said the biggest challenge was going to be that goal differential mark. And I think it's incredible because last season, at the end of the season, the Canadiens were minus 53, the goal differential. And so they were going to at least have to improve by 50 goals to get that close to zero. And I said if they wanted to make some noise in the playoffs, they're going to have to get that up to a plus 20. That's, improving by 75 goals, the goal difference, that's nuts. You look last season, as I said, minus 53. If you look at the Dallas Stars, the team Jake Ottinger plays for last year, they had a plus 64 to finish with 113 points. This season, Dallas, their goal differential is plus 33 already. The Canadiens, we were talking about the goal differentials being in the minus 30s. They've improved that dramatically. Currently, they sit at minus 10. They're going to have to improve that a little bit more in order to get into the mix. But that goal differential number, keep an eye on that. They've made amazing progress. I give them full credit year over year, and that's one of the things that's made them a much better team right now.
So that's the numbers. What about the personnel? Well, let's talk about one player in particular who we've actually already spent a bit of time in the first segment talking about, who has absolutely helped to contribute to this turnaround for the Canadiens, and that is rookie defenseman Laine Hutson. He's had 16 points and registering in at a plus 10 over the last month of play, which is just absolutely incredible for this young man.
Well, that'd bring him up to a 39 ranking, wouldn't it?
Something like that.
No, he's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Leads rookies in points, well into the Calder conversation. He's tied with Suzuki as the top point getter over the last month for the Canadiens. And the knock was, Corey mentioned it, was defensively. He's certainly held his own in that regard. And his pairing with Mike Matheson, that's happened over the last month, and that's benefited him as well.
Defensively, doing a good job. Also putting up the production, making him into a very good all-around defenseman already in his rookie year. One of the things that Marty St. Louis has liked to talk about ever since he came on board as the coach is putting players in the right chair. That's been one of his favorite catchphrases. But it seems as if with all the shuffling that's gone on for those chairs, playing musical chairs kind of for the last couple of seasons, it seems that there's players that more and more are sitting in the quote unquote right chair. And let's start with talking about Patrik Laine.
Yeah, so there was a lot of shuffling, a lot of experimentation the first 2 months of the season. And part of that was trying to figure out a first line, trying to figure out a second line with the absence of Patrik Laine. Now, him returning after his injury. With respect to the forwards, everything has kind of fallen in place. It was in the last month that Juraj Slafkovsky was able to be moved up to the first line, Patrik Laine in the second line. Jake Evans where he belongs, Dvorak. Everything has worked out. And Patrik Laine, that addition to Newhook and Doc, has established a legitimate second line. You heard Jake Ottinger say their top six is as good as any. Now, Patrik Laine, He scored his first even strength goal. Still not a big factor yet in terms of his 5-on-5 production, but even his presence, he's a threat the teams must defend 5-on-5. And so the Canadiens, the return of Patrik Laine has really helped get people in that right chair.
And that goes further to two other guys who we talked about just a few minutes ago, having finally picked up their pace as well and settling in nicely. That's Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook. We even said at the beginning of the season, when we kind of put out some predictions on what was going to be needed for the Canadiens to have success this season, and we absolutely said Kirby Dach has got to get it together now, and so does Alex Newhook, and finally that seems to start to be happening.
Dach with 6 goals in his last 10 games. Newhook has 5 points in that same period. And Dach, it maybe took him longer. Listen, look back to Cole Caulfield last season. His season back after surgery, after his injury. Dach was out for a long time. His return, it took him a little bit longer than maybe fans were ready to be patient about to get back to, and I still don't think he's necessarily back to where he needs to be, but he's well on his way. He's certainly turned a corner for sure.
It's very good to see, and the big key, we talked about this a moment ago as well. For the defense starting to solidify was, and even though he likely won't admit it, if you ask him, he will play the company man. He is a team first guy, but moving Caden Gooley back to his natural side.
Oh man, we preached about this. We talked about it because Caden Gooley was playing on his wrong side since last December. And we were saying, split up Gooley and Matheson, put Gooley back on his natural side. And the excuse was bringing in Carrier, but more than Carrier, putting Caden Gooley on his natural side, solidifying him as the number one defenseman has made all the difference in the world to the defense. Again, it's one player. Like we talked about with Laine, but everything, all the pairings just fall naturally into place. We're saying put Matheson on the right side. If you need a player on the right side, let it be Matheson. He's the veteran. And even this last week, he talked about how he has to think about little details, but certainly with his skating ability and with his experience as a veteran, he's far in a much better place to adapt to being on his wrong side than a young player like Gooley. So that's all of that. Then Matheson on the right side, and some may consider it a demotion, him on the second pairing. I don't think it is, because he's with Hudson, and the two of them have been terrific together. And David Savard, it didn't work with David Savard above anything, above a third pairing, and that's a natural place for him at this stage in his career. So the defense they're all in their right chairs as well.
If you want to talk about success for a team, obviously you have to, one of the first places you're going to look is the top line. And now that Slafkovsky is back up top playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, that top line has absolutely become much more effective.
Yeah. It was December when apparently Nick Suzuki, a year ago, December, Nick Suzuki said, Slafkovsky's struggling, put him on my line. We'll work things out. They did. Slafkovsky took off last year. Hasn't been the same trajectory, but certainly when Slafkovsky was moved to the top line was better. Those three feel comfortable together. And Slafkovsky, I'd say he's still a step behind last season, but again, he's a player who's turned the corner. More is needed from him, but it's allowed Suzuki and Caulfield to be a true top line, two true top line players. They're driving the play. Caulfield, 24 goals, Suzuki, 45 points. That line has 3 game winners in the past 5 games and is a threat. They're not only shutting down the opposition, they're a threat to score and at the very least drive the play for the Canadiens.
So if you're going to talk about the top line, what about the bottom 6? Because it's one of those things we've talked before about, prospects and so forth. When kind of that phase that fans and the organization were going through, that if a prospect came up from the farm and they weren't just turning into a superstar in the top 6, then maybe you didn't waste your time on them. And we've tried to talk so much about how important the role of being a solid bottom 6 player is, and that there are absolutely Jake Evans is a prime example of someone who used to be a consistent bottom 6 player. He's showing that he's got more potential than that. But having an effective bottom 6, I think Evans is kind of the center of what has happened to the bottom 6 for the Canadiens recently.
Yeah, we remember just around Christmas time, he had a 5 game goal streak. He was moved up at times. Who is the real fourth line? I think now with Heineman out and Pizzetta struggling, that Evans and Armia are the fourth line. The Dvorak line with Anderson and Gallagher has been a little quiet, but they started well, and certainly Anderson's playing better than he did last season. But it's Armia and Evans. Armia plus 14 in the last 14 games. Evans is a plus 12. These guys are, it's a complete lineup for Montreal, which they haven't had the last few years.
They really haven't. And we've talked kind of ad nauseum about how exciting it is to watch Evans and his growth and how important of a piece he has become. I'm really thrilled for Yoel Armia. Mm-hmm. If you remember, Yoel Armia was sent to Laval early last year, and he stayed there for basically the bulk of the year. And he really embraced that, became a great mentor in Laval, and he has come back so strong this year and has been such a key piece. It's really great to see progress like that being made with the players that maybe, not everybody's talking about all the time. Special teams. How many years? Thank you, Alex Burrows, for deciding you didn't want to be behind the bench anymore, because whether it's Burrows not running the power play anymore, whether it's obviously the fact that Patrik Laine is on the power play now, but the special teams, both power play and penalty kill, have absolutely just exploded in the last 6 weeks or so. And that is a huge boon for the Canadiens overall.
Yeah, top 10 rankings over that period for both the power play and penalty kill. With respect to the power play, it's obvious. Patrik Laine, 9 power play goals in 16 games. On the penalty kill, Jake Evans, Yoel Armia, both are a threat to score shorthanded. They've been very effective.
It's been tremendous. And now it's back to, you remember when we used to groan every time the Canadiens went on the power play? You were kind of like, you didn't want to watch. But now they go on the power play and you get excited because is it going to be Caulfield? Is it going to be Laine? What's going to happen? And seeing the special teams wake up has been a lot of fun. And without a doubt, it was way, 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 way overdue for them to be done with the Caden Primo at the NHL level experiment. We've said that multiple times here on the podcast. Didn't want to eat when they traded Jake Allen last year. We thought that was the wrong move to stick with Primo. Primo is now coming up with wins. He seems to be once again so much more comfortable playing in the AHL. It's given Jakub Dobiš a chance to come up and show what he can do. And boy, he is just absolutely making a difference. And I will go ahead and say this, and I think I even said it when Jakub Dobeš was first called up a number of weeks ago, Sam Montembeault better stay on his toes.
It's funny how so many of the beat writers are trying to downplay Dobeš's success, but it's been stunning, absolutely stunning for a goaltender to come up, make his NHL debut, and to face the Stanley Cup champions, Colorado, Washington, Dallas, 4 very difficult teams, 4 on the road, and he's allowed 4 goals total
That's amazing.
in his 4 wins. A 0.98 goals against average, 963 save percentage, 1 shutout. We talked about it before, and the 4 wins. Over the last period, Sam Montembeault has been getting the wins. He wasn't great against Utah, but he got the win there. He lost that game against Chicago, which he probably regrets. So Montembeault 7-2-1 in his last 10 starts. But I found this quote from La Presse. Montembeault has allowed 12 goals in his last 4 games, has a 260 goals against and a 900 save percentage since December 17th. And that comes and it's fact that Dobeš has been getting the tougher starts and getting not only against the quality of the opposition, but the fact that he's taking the road games. So yes, Sam Montembeault has to improve, and the other criticism against Dobeš was that the Canadiens went on a run and then Dobeš joined them. No, Dobeš didn't board a well-oiled machine. He's helped to engineer it and been a big part of their success, not only with his 4 wins, but giving some time off, some breathers for Montembeault.
And this is exactly what Dobeš has said himself that he's been working towards. We know last year in his rookie campaign, if you've been with us, you know he had a rough first half of his rookie campaign in Laval, but most of that was due to the fact that he was brand new to the AHL, to pro hockey here. And his tandem partner was not the right one. JFL had not brought in the right tandem partner for him. As soon as that changed mid-season, he kind of burst onto the scene, really settled into his own, and that has just compounded this year. And as you'll hear from him in just a moment, he has been working up to this moment to get this NHL recall because he believed that he could prove that that would be the right choice for the Canadiens to make.
Well, I was thinking like how to say it, like I wanted to get called. Like when I was in Laval, I wanted to be here. So the one thing is I want to prove that I belong here, and the second thing, like I kind of like want to show everyone like they made the right choice, and there were a lot of days in Laval when I wanted to be here. So it's kind of a motivation to show everyone that maybe they were wrong, but I don't want to say it like in a confident way. I just want to prove myself. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, he wants to prove himself. Mm-hmm. He wants to prove people right that they made the right choice. But he even when he was in Laval, he imagined himself and thought a lot about being in Montreal. And wanted to show people that he could do it. He said, he briefly said maybe wanted to prove people wrong. And then he kind of backed away from that. No, I didn't quite mean that. But he wants to prove that he is an NHL goaltender, and he's been doing that emphatically in the last 4 games.
The other... in the list of things that we've actually gone through 7 already, the 8th thing that we have in this list of all of the factors that have contributed to this huge turnaround for the Canadiens in the last month or so absolutely has to be the fact that they've gotten healthy. And we know man games lost has been the just an absolute weight and burden on the backs of the Montreal Canadiens for season after season after season. And we all know what it felt like when we saw Patrik Laine go down in the preseason, and it was just here we go again. But Laine's back, and he's healthy. Now, he was out for a few games with the flu, but he's healthy. Kirby Dach is healthy. There's a lot of, good feeling about the fact that the Canadiens are getting healthy and staying mostly healthy.
Yeah, and it's a relative term, of course.
Sure.
But it's compared with what they dealt with in past years. And certainly they missed Patrik Laine for the first few months. But we're talking about the keys to this resurgence, this being the hottest team over the last month. And that's got to include, health. And that includes Patrik Laine returning. It includes Kirby Dach getting healthier, and experiencing very few major injuries. As you mentioned, a bug that Alex Newhook played with the flu. Laine was out for a couple of games. And now this injury to Heineman, that might have an effect, but they've been a relatively healthy team, and they're going to need that to continue if they want to continue to be in this race, continue this hottest streak, and not have a chance of it cooling off. They need to be healthy.
They need to be healthy. Heineman's injury doesn't help things. But those are things that are out of your control. I also, as we've talked about, the change in the medical staff and the training staff and so forth.
Yeah, and let's mention that Jim Ramsey, let's call him out by name, Director of Sports Medicine for the Canadiens. There was a bit of an issue, and Jeff Gorton said he was going to make that change and brought in Jim Ramsey, someone he was very familiar with. Jim Ramsey's been great, and when players have been out, he's correctly predicted when they would return, and there hasn't been this return to the lineup, bounce out, and that sort of thing. So credit to Jim Ramsey as part of this hot streak that the Canadiens are on.
So the big question now is this sustainable? Is this a flash in the pan that we're all kind of riding high on that's going to come, that the roller coaster is going to bottom out here any second? Or is this something that we can actually see the Canadiens consistently produce over the next weeks and couple of months? Can they build on it? Can they keep the momentum moving forward? Those are all very valid questions. And I think because of how things have gone for the Canadiens for the last number of years, there's a lot of fans that are either on the side of absolutely ready to go all in and be really hopeful and excited and things like that. And I think there's plenty of fans that are feeling a little bit of trepidation about, I'm being cautiously optimistic, perhaps.
Waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess, they have to, all those 8 things that we mentioned, 7 or 8 things that we mentioned, that's got to continue. Those things have to continue for them to continue to have success and for this success to be sustainable. In addition, the games are going to get tougher because, as we said, there's all these teams jockeying for a playoff position. So you're going to need more from the Canadiens' third line. You're going to need more from Juraj Slafkovsky as the games get tougher. You're going to need some help on that fourth line if Heineman's, going to be out for a bit. Pizzetta, playing 4 minutes a game is not much of a help there. Maybe some help from Laval. So I think, you have to continue, but you got to continue to raise your game. You have to continue to rise to the level of competition. And remember, there's going to be that break in February. They have to be able to sustain and pick up where they left off after the February break.
So they have to do certain things. Obviously, everything we talked about, they have to keep doing. Like that stuff can't stop. Would you like to see more from Slafkovsky the remainder of this season?
Of course, yeah.
What do we do with Pizzetta?
Yeah, I say thank you. You've been a patient player. You've been a warrior. And let's bring up somebody from Laval. Whether it's a Condata, whether it's Joshua with an injury and maybe not well suited to fit in on that fourth line anyway. But I think that they're going to need someone rather than try to get through these next 3 or 4 weeks until Heineman gets back.
And, the looming question, and this was a question posed to our listeners recently, the trade deadline.
Yeah, this is dangerous, dangerous territory. It's so easy to be seduced by the fact that they're they're right there. They're so close to the playoffs. It's been so long. And if Hughes could just make that 1 or 2 trades there's so much draft capital. Why not make a trade to try and squeak into the postseason, even if it gets around? Fans are just salivating over that. But Hughes can't be seduced. He can't detour from the rebuild plan. It's what has helped them get to where they are now. He's got to stick, as tough as it's going to be. He's got to keep planning for the future because it's only going to get better.
Can they do it? Please, please, please. Well, that's what we want to ask you a little bit, sort of. Here's our Canadiens Connection question of the week. Remember, this is the opportunity for us to pose a question to all of you who are listening and watching, listening to and watching the show. We want to hear your opinion on this question. We want to hear your thoughts, your comments, your responses. And we want to know this week, what do you think has been the biggest factor behind the Habs' recent turnaround? We gave you 8 factors that we thought contributed. Maybe you think one of those is the biggest factor that's helped the Habs turn things around, or maybe you have a different idea altogether. But we want to know what you think has been the biggest factor behind the Canadiens' recent turnaround. So send us a text, 585-3-ROCKET. Drop us a comment on YouTube. Drop us a comment on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Habs Connection. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do that at hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. But make sure you get your answers in promptly. We'll review them throughout the week. And next week on the show, we're going to read the best ones that come in. And that's what we're going to do just in a few minutes, right after this final commercial break here on the show. We're going to be reading your answers to last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. You are not going to want to miss it, so stick around. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings yet? What are you waiting for? You better get on it. The playoffs are here and time is running out. As the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else. Play for better payouts on Pick 6. It's super easy to get started. You select 2 or more players, choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, that kind of thing. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. And DraftKings is making it even sweeter for first-timers. New Pick 6 customers play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Habs fans. Welcome back to episode 331 of the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, we've said it a few times, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure that you are following us on our socials at Habs Connection. Make sure that you leave us a review. If you're able to do that, if you're listening on a platform that does allow you to leave a review, it takes just a second to tap that 5-star. Really helps us out. We would greatly appreciate that. And the other thing that takes just a second for you to do that we would appreciate is sharing this episode, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're listening to or watching. Just hit that share button. We would certainly appreciate you sharing it with your followers on your social media accounts. Don't forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, that's InsideTheCanadiens.com. That's where you'll go to find that. We have so many people who actually do listen and watch to the podcast on our YouTube channel solely. And there's always great conversation in the comments on our YouTube channel. So even if you like to listen on a regular podcast platform, be sure you always hop over to the YouTube channel just to check out the comments and get in the conversation there as well, because it's always a lot of fun. So don't forget, this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week, we're asking you what you think has been the biggest factor behind the Habs' recent turnaround. We want to know what you think has been the key to the Canadiens finding themselves in the hunt for a wild card spot, trying to make the playoffs, just succeeding in ways that it didn't seem possible at the beginning of the season. So be sure to text us, email us, drop us a comment on YouTube or on social media. Let us know what you think has been the biggest factor behind their turnaround, and send us a good response, and you might hear it read on next week's show. Last week, and I just said this to Rick when we're talking about at the end of the last segment as to whether or not this momentum is sustainable and this kind of performance level is sustainable for the Canadiens. And I said, but the trade deadline, and that's where Rick said it's gonna get tricky. To not be seduced into trying to do something short term just to push the Habs over the edge for the playoffs for this year. And last week on the show, we asked all of you, does the Canadiens' recent success change Kent Hughes' trade deadline strategy? We wanted to know if you thought that Hughes would kind of, turn on his heels a little bit, maybe shake things up, or is he going to keep it status quo? Is he going to keep his eyes focused ahead on the rebuild and their plan? And we had some terrific responses in a number of different spots. I know, Rick, you got an email from our friend Dino.
From our friend Dino in the Ottawa-Gatineau area. He sent an email to hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. That's our email address, hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. He says, "Hi, Rick, Amy. Hope things are well. ABN. Are the Habs for real?" ? And that was the common question amongst many of you who sent in texts and emails and made comments this week. Are the Habs for real? No business winning tonight. That was Thursday. Dallas could not beat that kid Dobas tonight. Is this kid for real? Holy smoke, Batman. We are starting to look like a hockey team. Competitive most nights. Goaltending stealing us wins when outplayed. Keeping pace with playoff contenders. Doing this despite it all. League parity? ? Zero pressure as a rebuild project. Are we actually becoming a good team? I think we are, modestly. Weekend tilt with the Leafs and Rangers. See what happens. ABN, salute bien from Dino, Ottawa-Gatineau.
Always love to hear from Dino. Great answer. Over on our YouTube channel, @Habinations is a frequent commenter, always has good things to say. He says about last week's show, I found the Claude Roel thing very interesting.
We talked about last week.
We did. And he said, to be honest, my Habs journey started with Bernie Parent. I know he wasn't a Hab, but he should have been one, in my opinion.
100%. I love Bernie Parent.
Sorry, Flyers got him.
He's such a cool person too. Even now, his social media, and he's a great follow. And Jeannie Parent, his wife, is what they're terrific.
Finally, Habinations continues and says, I'm happy they finally have something going. I'm even happier Primo is winning in Laval. And I have to say yes, because why torment the kid in the NHL? Let him be successful at the place that he can be successful. So great response from Habinations.
Another frequent commenter, this one from @CenterHeist7948. Hello, Amy and Rick. Love the show as always. Sorry I hadn't commented on 2 previous episodes, but I was on family vacation. That's allowed.
Yeah.
Anyhow, to address this week's question, I think this just keeps Hughes' original plan on target now being in the mix. If they hadn't have turned things around, then I think the original plan would have been altered a bit. I'm loving Dobish. And keep the great shows coming. That from @CenterHeist.
Thank you very much, Center Heist. Glad that you've been enjoying, and hope you had a great family vacation. So don't forget, if you'd like your opportunity, your chance to maybe have your thoughts on the Habs read on next week's show for all of our listeners and viewers, then you've got to answer the Canadiens Connection question of the week. So be sure to do that. It's going to be a busy week for the Canadiens. They've got a back-to-back Saturday-Sunday schedule this week. So they are back at home at the Bell Center. They'll be hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night at 7, then hosting the New York Rangers Sunday night at 7. Tuesday night, the Tampa Bay Lightning come to Montreal for a 7 o'clock tilt. And Thursday night, Montreal heads out on the road to Detroit, and where they will be playing the Red Wings also at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So 7 o'clock starts across the board, 4 games on tap for this week.
And 3 of those opponents are teams that they're in direct competition for a playoff spot.
It's going to be an important week. And can I just say, if Montreal has 3 home games and Saturday, Sunday are back-to-back nights, can Jakub Dobish please get his first home game start? Please, 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 please give this kid a Bell Center welcome. I want to see it happen. Then, of course, after all of that, we'll be back next Saturday, January 25th for our next episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast. We hope to see you here. We want to see you here, and we're looking forward to it. There's going to be lots and lots to talk about. Don't forget to tap subscribe. Have a wonderful week. If you're in any area of the North American continent that is dealing with some significant winter weather, be safe out there. Enjoy all the hockey, and we'll see you back here again next week for another fun episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Rocket Sports.